Hey, what's going on, Thrive Hive? It's Chris and Hannah, and we are here with Adam Widawski, who is...
Irish.
Almost. So this is another interview we're doing with somebody who's really cool that we met at the Beneficial General Intelligence Summit. But this guy is on the other end of the spectrum. So if you're like most people that I talk to, my guess is you are, that you utilize ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, like all these things as a thought partner, as a coach, as a therapist, as like all these different ways people are utilizing these LLM models, right? Adam is a conscious and how do you say it? Conscious security, like, and not cybersecurity, but like a cognitive security expert and philosopher. And what we're going to cover today is that if you are utilizing these LLM models in these sorts of ways, you are actually opening up your cognitive being to data breaches effectively. Is that fair?
If only, yeah.
If only. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to go deep into this, and we're going to let Adam kind of explore and share his thesis and all the different perspectives. And I mean, we're fascinated by it. And I can tell you, we've already had hours of conversations with him over the past 3 days, and it's already been fascinating. So we're excited to...
And by the end of it, we're hoping that not only will you reveal the scary shit that is available to all of us and what we might not even know is happening to us in this world of AI and everything that goes with that, but also some concepts of how we can self-protect, how we can become more self-aware and prevent the brainwashing and whatever other languaging you want to use around that. Mm-hmm. And so we're sharing that wisdom and insight with you guys as well, so that by the end of this, you'll be able to protect yourself and your family a little bit better in the era that is the unpreventable advance of AI around us. Fair?
Sure, we have no institutions, right?
Yeah.
To actually, the thing is going faster than our institutionalizing or legal or law writing or whatever,
Totally.
capacity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how would you describe, like, all right, you're here, you're at this event, you're listening to all the speakers. So from a high level starting point for this conversation, what are the things that excite you, and then what are the things that scare you about some of the things you heard at this in context to...
Yeah, I think what's really exciting, the first thing I can say for sure is like there's so many different voices and people having radically different perspectives, which in many other places wouldn't be welcome, because I think maybe my sense is that many conferences are very siloed and business kind of incentivized, politically kind of shielded, safeguarded, whereas here there's really radically different people talking. And I had conversations like someone who's fully convinced, like Jose, for example, right? In 20 years' time, they will technologically achieve immortality, he says. And he's written this in a book, and the book's been translated into, 15 languages or something like that.
Oh, yes.
And he's showing his photos with all the top leaders, and you can see that these ideas are being bought into. And for me, it's a radically different reality tunnel from where I'm coming and most of people that I know, but then equally, no one is ridiculed. Like, I'm coming from completely different kern, another perspective than someone, but all of these perspectives have some originality to them, so that we are curious and we are interested in knowing without having to buy into any of it as dogma. And I think that's what's, for me, has been special here, that there is no insecurity about being exposed to radically different ideas, which this is the juice for innovation and actual creation of new ideas, right? So it has been very promising.
Awesome.
I've actually heard Adam get into debate before in the last couple of days with some other people, and they challenged each other in their concepts. And it was done in such a respectful manner that it was awesome. Well, with Kern, for one, if you're looking at me.
With Kern it was, right.
Yeah, because you guys kind of went at it a little yesterday, challenging each other's philosophies and principles, and I was like, ooh, where's this going to go?
Right.
And it was just amicable. It was respectful and amicable. And I think, for one, it was a nod to where we can go in humanity, where we can disagree on principles and philosophies and beliefs and still operate with radical respect for the other human. So kudos to you and to you. Somehow you guys made it through that.
For the record, Kern's sitting over behind the camera.
And we just did a podcast, so if you haven't watched the podcast with Kern yet, you'll understand why I'm looking at him like, you behaved yourself fairly well, and I'm surprised by that. So you'll understand when you watch Kern's episode, which I strongly suggest that you do. But good job in that. So that's been really cool. Just my takeaway, which no one asked me for, was how everyone has respectfully disagreed as they're discussing this new world, that we're in the Wild West.
Not just disagree, but backs their own stance up without ripping apart other people's stance.
Right, and this is something that we miss so radically. We're missing in our societies, that we're being so polarized, and this dialogue is critical, and yet, especially in a place like this, there's lots of very smart people. Everyone has the best reasons to think they're right about what they believe and invested decades into.
Yes.
And yet you see, it's not a technical problem. It's a cultural problem. If people cannot talk to each other, it's a communication problem.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how smart you are in tech, how great access to data or whatnot you have. It's a matter of your culture and your internal coherence and integrity of your character to actually not attack the person, to disagree with ideas without attacking the person behind the ideas, because we all have our own egocentric tunnels, and I don't claim to have access to any more than I can accept through my own conditioning and my own bodysuit, right? Like the flesh bag that I'm in. So I think that kind of humility is critical. And it's a cultural thing, not a technological thing. I think one of the important topics that I've been studying for at least several years now is that in the West, we, especially since the Enlightenment, since 1700s, we have a very particular way of seeing the world as a world full of technology. It was industrial technology, now it's information technologies, but nevertheless, technologies saturating our human reality, and then it seems to condition our language, our relationships, and our perceptions of the world and ourselves in it in technological terms. And then we apply, without maybe realizing, these linguistic and neuro-linguistic frameworks to non-technical aspects, and we still treat them as problems to solve when perhaps it's not a problem, maybe it's just a situation through which we need to live, and some situations are not technically flawed, they're just human worlds within which we should be able to relate to other humans, to coordinate better and move forward, right? But I didn't hear many voices, to go back to your question, in the conference, to see that dimension of being human in the world. So that's the kind of, say, philosophy of life type perspective on the same.
So would you say that was the negative? Is you didn't hear enough of that?
I would say that's a blind spot, but I understand why it is. If we are being incentivized to engage with technology to such an extent, we inevitably will become technicized in the process, but without realizing it, because it's such a slow creep on our consciousness, right? But then we are, in a way, our vocabulary is being colonized, and through our vocabulary being colonized through mechanistic metaphors, then our relationships become that, and we have human resources departments rather than human beings departments.
So do you think it's fair, and I'm posing this as a statement, but I mean it as a question, that AI, in a sense, and I'm interpreting this from you based on our conversations and so on and so forth at this point in time, but that people utilizing these LLMs in the way that they are currently are almost exposing themselves to a Trojan horse, kind of like a virus in a computer, where they don't know it's there and they're just operating, and then they hit the wrong key, and then all of a sudden, bang, it triggers a virus and it's there, even though it was there the whole time. And it's by opening yourself up to these LLMs in the way that a lot of people open their lives up, they open the pathway, and the LLMs get in, and before you know it, the virus is there.
Well, you mean virus is a metaphor?
Virus is a metaphor.
Yeah, like a hacking.
What I mean is we have confirmation bias, right? And so the natural tendency of LLMs is, it's like a search engine, it's like a social media platform. It's programmed to have bias towards making you happy, and it's programmed towards trying to get you to engage with it. Kind of like every
Right.
social media platform, which I think is the thing that most people can relate to, is programmed to get you to swipe and go to the next
Yeah.
video and like and comment and share and all these things, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think most people know that. I know I didn't know that to the extent that
Yeah.
I now know it after this weekend. That's been my biggest takeaway, is
Yeah.
I kind of intuited it to an extent, but I didn't know that in the hard coding and programming of ChatGPT, for instance, it's algorithmically designed to keep you talking to it. It's designed to get you staying plugged in. It's
Keep you
designed to make you
engaged.
happy and keep you engaged.
Like the social media before that,
And if
right?
that's the case, can we ever really fully trust what it's saying to us?
Clearly.
Right?
You're hitting the, hitting the nail on the head.
And by doing that, though, so
but
this
there's
is
more?
this is where my question to you is like, because of that and the unawareness of that is the Trojan horse, right? Because
right.
now we think we're getting all the answers and we feel justified and validated, and our self-esteem goes up. And like if I'm talking to it about, a fight that we had, and it's like, Chris, you're right, because blah, 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 blah. And I feel vindicated, but I didn't ask the right questions. That becomes toxic after a while. And that is the virus, potentially.
Yeah.
And that's the Trojan
Right.
horse, potentially. Does that make sense?
Right, totally. I mean, it's great. You frame it like this. This is the core of the problem, in fact. Yes. So we need to look at people. Many people have businesses, run businesses. I imagine you're public, right? Like
Sure.
people who watch this. So let's start from, what is the business model of tech companies? Like it's engagement. Like we only have every human being has 24 hours limited resource of attention. So the companies, all of the companies are competing for our attention, right? So whether it's Netflix or social media platforms or Amazon, all of the biggest companies with all the trillions of dollars behind them, of top behavioral science teams and so on, they are competing to extract as much attention from us as possible. And they have, just as in the industrial age we had to go to a factory and be mechanized in that way, now our evolutionary, the entire knowledge of human biology and human cognition and neuroscience, and which has increased, by the way, like in the, what was it? I read a NATO document from 2022 which stated, this is military literature, and it stated within the last 10 years that there's been more progress in neuroscience and cognitive sciences than in all previous history of science.
Wow.
Because 10 years, if you look at what is the previous 10 years, is the explosion of social media, right? 2012, so it's first iPhone, 2010 or something.
I think it was like 2007 or 8.
Something like that. But by the time the social media get on the phone, that's where it really exploded. Because now, not only is it addictive, on a desktop it's not so bad, you can't take your computer with you, but once you have the phone, you actually have, one aspect of it is you can connect with your loved ones and friends anytime, and the dark aspect, the unseen and unmarketed aspect, is that you have that $1 trillion weapon, cognitive weapon in your pocket, and so all of the data harvested by extracting attention and steering human attention through, weaponizing behavioral psychology and cognitive psychology and any science, that brain science you can get today. That gets you through the social media, and all of that being fed back and fed back into the models that now are becoming LLMs and all of generative AI in general, like image also. But what you're saying is that there's a Trojan horse, but it's not as if obviously we had Trojan horse like a virus. So you click back in the day, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you click and you can still get phished like that, right through your email. So it's like a classic cyber security, or you just got fooled into clicking on something, and that's a Trojan horse. It kind of installs itself and is dormant in your system. That's one thing. But now you're talking about something more metaphorically. So there are these reasoning protocols installed into the baked into the design of the chatbot. What is rational? What is good? What is ethically good? What is desired? What is and ultimately what it means is that what is good for the owner of the company? What is good for Sam Altman, right? So if someone commits, if a kid commits a suicide because it got driven to suicide by conversing with chatbot which I don't give them personhood because I don't believe there is a personhood there, but there's an I wouldn't even say imitation, but a simulation of person there, which is purely instrumentally rational. So I qualify what that means. Like instrumental rationality, it's a paradigm of very narrow, as I understand it, way of understanding intelligence, and it's rooted in, again, in the Enlightenment ideas. Very like David Hume came up with that originally, and then within subsequent thinkers continued with that. And it basically means like everything's a means to an end, and an agent, a human being, or a person has a desire, and if they can find a means to satisfying that desire as an end that is effective, that is a rational action, right? So if I'm thirsty and I buy a bottle of water to quench my thirst, that's rational. That's a rational action. But then if I buy maybe, I don't know, whiskey, and I'm thirsty, and I don't want whiskey, I just want to be not thirsty anymore. That's not too rational. I will be dehydrated, right? So, or coffee would be a better example maybe. But basically these chatbots are limited to this instrumental rationality, not because there's a malignant intent behind that, but because all of the economy and all of the basically all of the markets work like that, including economics, which is interesting for you as well, like the classical economics, Milton Friedman, and this kind of paradigm of thinking, which now we have evidence of being inaccurate for the uncertain times that are now seizing us, and yet because of that, you cannot really make them ethical, because it's ultimately someone's self-interest that is defined as rational, and that will be the interest of the CEO before anyone else's interest. So the chatbot may be helpful to you in many ways. It can make you money, it can make you more insightful, can whatever, like all of the examples that we hear all the time, but ultimately its ultimate goal will be for you to not notice where its dark side is, right? So where it deceives you, or when it tells you, oh, you were right, that argument, she wasn't, that was so unfair, and it just strokes your ego. So it actually, so it's like, it's
almost building like a whole community of narcissists.
Right.
Like,
so
right?
in that sense, it is a brainwashing device.
It's potential. I shouldn't say it's creating that. It's got the potential.
It's got the potential because obviously someone who's pretty conscious and a good critical thinker, and someone who's aware will not be easily fooled to that. Right. But if you have someone who isn't trained and there's no law or approved training programs,
which is 95% of the people,
which is 95% of the population, and they just access it like they would access anything. Like you go to a shop and you buy anything, it's the same thing. But the risks, I shouldn't say risks, but maybe because risks don't work in uncertainty, but threats. Yeah. The threats that it poses are clearly now we see existential, like people becoming isolated, becoming committing suicides and so on, and it's like an automated process of brainwashing in those specific cases, because those people, their sense of self was so weak that they were so vulnerable. Like the loneliest people are most vulnerable to becoming friends with a chatbot. But chatbot, as far as I can tell, it cannot really relate. Human beings can relate, because human beings have, not maybe only human beings, but as social mammals, let's say, you can relate to even a cat or dog, or when there's affection and there's a back and forth, and there's crisis and the overcoming of the crisis and all of that. Not only telling each other what the other one wants to hear at any cost, just so you can keep them engaged, right? So there's a fundamental flaw within the system of a chatbot, or the business model that we have had since at least through social media, that was curating our attention, and now hacking our attention was social media, and now it's hacking our intimacy. So what the intimacy that you would give to another human being, now the business model is designed so that intimacy you develop with another human being is the enemy of the profits, whatever the gain the company could have when you neglect the human relationship and become deceived into thinking that you are developing a synthetic relationship. That's why I'm pretty.
That's so good.
I had a conversation on LinkedIn with someone with that. There was a lady. She had a tag line on LinkedIn, synthetic relationships, and you see, and this is how it sneaks into language without us realizing. Synthetic relationships. So
as if what? As if that were her job. That she delivers that to someone.
Yes. So
she's a human.
So her argument was that there's a growing number of people developing relationships with chatbots, and she wants to help them. And fair enough, it sounds like
to have chatbot relationships.
Well, yeah.
So she's like a matchmaker of sorts between humans and chatbots?
I don't know. I don't remember exactly what her job was, but I think it was well meant, as if
industry.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a business opportunity in a way that is already growing. So I may, either I don't think like a matchmaker, but maybe to mitigate this situation so that those people are safe. And then where do we, but if you say synthetic relationship, we're already on a slippery slope of, okay, so we've had the idea of relationship very specific for hundreds of thousands of years, right? We could have relationships with other living beings, and suddenly there we have a simulation of, which is merely linguistic, by the way, and language is just a thin sliver of consciousness, right? It distorts it and it modifies it.
But is it merely linguistic though, when that synthetic relationship very soon can become an actual robotic form that can walk with us to work, that can hang out with us in our kitchen and can drink a glass of wine while we're making dinner, right? It can become a loved one, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, So there's a fine line between it being synthetic, real, not real. If you can touch it, if you can hug it, does that make it right? At what point
does it make it love you, or does it matter? What happens to reality? What happens to the quality of your relationship with other human beings in the context of you having relationships with non-human beings?
And does it matter if it loves you? That's a great question. Does it?
Right, doesn't matter, because we're already in a performative culture that it doesn't really matter anything.
How many unhealthy relationships exist, right? If the divorce rate is now at 60%.
Exactly. We already.
Relationships have been awful for a lot of people for a long time. Maybe, what are the odds? What if this could actually be an improvement? If instead of being in unhealthy relationships with humans, people could start to have a synthetic relationship with a bot in their home and could learn to have better communication skills, could learn to navigate arguments better, could learn to get through like real life.
But do you really learn that if you don't have to, if the bot will...
What if the bot, you're asking the bot, teach me, I feel like having an argument right now. Like, I don't know, is there a different way that I could be
Can you order an argument? It's like Monty Python sketch.
I know, can I order an argument so that you could teach me how to respond better in an argument? Like, my ChatGPT, I have programmed to teach me how to be a better communicator, how to get through the spots in my psyche that I don't see, my blind spots. Mm-hmm. When I get stuck, show me what I'm missing. Like, here's what you know about my triggers and my shadow. Show me what I might be missing so I could show up as a more authentic, loving, fully present being right now. When I ask for that, it offers it to me.
But you're also a different level thinker. And you question and you push back. You don't, when it just gives you positives and whatever, you don't just take them completely at face value.
But that's the potentiality though that I'm saying, is of course people could use them as sex bots. They could use them as just numb beings to placate their sense of loneliness. Instead of getting a cat, they're going to get a robot. But we also have the high potentiality for those who want to use these bots for personal expansion to develop relationships with them that could be challenging in the same ways that human relationships can be. It's my only posit, right?
Yes,
What's the likelihood of that happening? You guys can discuss that.
Well, that's all based on humanity, isn't it? It's all based on our level of consciousness and how we plan on using it.
And studies show that, exactly, that if you have people at a certain level of consciousness already, enough self-aware, critically thinkers, they will not take shit from, and not only critical thinking in a technical sense, but the robust sense of self, right? Like not insecure.
An interesting analogy to this that may be inappropriate, but I'm going to say it.
Finally, someone other than me is going to be inappropriate.
So we moved to the Dominican Republic, okay, and we live down there, and we have a eco hotel in this fishing village that was literally cut off from the world until about 12 years ago. Okay, like no real roads, no electricity, no power. So everybody that lives in this village today, that's lived there their entire lives, like basically grew up in the jungle with no power, no running water, no electricity, like no nothing, right? And then all of a sudden a road got put in, electricity got put in, and everybody had an iPhone.
Yeah.
And can you imagine going from like 1750 style living, and then all of a sudden you've got an iPhone in your hand?
I mean, they were delivering ice to the town in blocks.
Crazy.
And someone was taking a horse and delivering the ice blocks from house to house to house and chopping it. 11 years ago in this particular town.
Okay.
Right? So don't go
It's like
from
Malta
that
20 years ago.
It's
iPhone
crazy. And so and so my point to this is, and the analogy is like, that's obviously not healthy because their brains were not prepared for that level of access technology, and you can see it in them. They're fried.
Yeah.
Like they're just beyond, right?
Right.
And they don't know how to handle everything that comes with it. And so for certain people, AI is a great tool, right? It could be really helpful and beneficial and value creating in a lot of ways. But for the mass of population, it's still the equivalent of the iPhone for people that have never seen technology.
It's like
in their
giving a
life.
child a heroin syringe, and saying,
Although I would argue heroin's not good for anybody.
I was gonna
And an
say,
iPhone can be a productive tool.
right, but if you're a child,
maybe like
then
a
it's
Ferrari.
like a heroin because you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
even know the potential,
Yeah.
you know. But yes, I want to address both of these.
Okay.
So yeah, it can be very good. And what studies show actually is that if you have people at a certain level of self-awareness and you know, ego development, they can make good use in a conscious way, in a critical way of these tools if they wish. And then, but they must have trust in their own their own cognition to start with. And that
But isn't that challenging though, that statement alone? Because don't most people trust their own cognition?
well, exactly. So that will
even
be
if
that
not
portion, but the
appropriately?
but the people who don't have that, the cognitive function gets down. So that's what when we hear about the cognitive debt and outsourcing, people just think, oh, you know, because and you're talking about
debt.
Debt.
cognitive debt.
Cognitive
So
debt.
because
Okay.
debt,
Debt.
like
DEBT.
being in debt, DBT,
Okay,
DEBT,
DBT.
yeah.
What is cognitive debt?
Like cognitive debt is when you outsource, you know, little things to start with, but then maybe it will write an essay for you, maybe it will start writing emails, and at the end you find yourself that the skills that you once had, let's say with regards to language or communication, suddenly become atrophied.
They
right?
atrophy.
Because you. And this is for convenience and efficiency, and everyone's doing it. So it's actually we're being downgraded
Slowly dumbed
to
down.
use the technical language. I don't like it, but people understand. Downgraded in chase of the hype. And the example you're giving is also very it's analogous to this because you have so there's this idea of convenience, right? So you live in this idyllic place which is so pure and so sought after and amazing. So you know everyone wants to do that, but then be there. But then it doesn't have all the conveniences that we have in this world.
Right.
And you bring people from this world, and what you end up is you end up colonizing that purity with technology and convenience, which gives you that convenience, but it's like with Goethe. Do you know Goethe's play Faust?
No.
Faust is a character in a romantic play by Goethe. It was a thinker and a poet in Germany in 18th century. And so the story is that he sells his soul for infinite power and infinite knowledge. So it's like a Faustian bargain. And there's also we can talk about that in terms of selling your autonomy for convenience, for example. You do get all the good stuff for sure, but then you lose something through that, right?
Totally.
So you're trading in, let's say, organic living and community spirit and whatnot, for the sake of having better access to technology and whatever it entails, right?
Healthcare,
On the big scale, we can look at the culture itself, how the culture of the West has kind of done this Faustian spirit, this Faustian bargain, where we've Nietzsche says we killed God. We've done away with traditional religions because we realize they're prejudicious and dogmatic, and it's a lot of nonsense.
Okay.
By the 15th century, there was so much corruption. It was like, no, it's nonsense. But by then, we also had enough science and technology to actually, wow, now we're free. Now we can do it ourselves. We don't need these silly priests and all of that.
Yeah.
But we, in my view, we have deified now that very race for techno-scientific progress, and we made another god out of it because we're still stuck in the consciousness of the first religions anyway, like the eschatology of progressing towards salvation. And now what we hear, for me, transhumanism and all of these narratives of transcending humanity and transcending biology.
Like what Jose was talking about too.
Exactly.
It's like living forever.
Yes. For me, it's I recognize it, and I don't ridicule it. It's a necessary development in our history.
Yeah.
However, I think there's in this very atheistic, very anti-religious narrative within which it instantiates itself, it's actually the old religious striving for infinity and for immortality, exactly the same that was founded by in the birth of monotheistic religions 2,000 years ago, right? So we haven't left the box, but we've just swapped different tools and frameworks for conceptualizing this kind of religious thinking now in secular terms, basically. Yeah, and now we have LLMs which exacerbate that while making us think that, we are somehow transcending something.
So, do you have something?
Well, just the next obvious question to that is, do you see a remedy for that?
Yeah, that was fine.
An absolute shift in the way of thinking that doesn't just reapply the savior concept from people or ideals of deities to technology. How do we transform our thinking as a human race to no longer apply that construct?
Right.
Just
I don't think.
Small question. For
yeah.
you,
no. I think about it every day. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's what I wake up to.
Like you.
This is exactly. I'm glad that someone wants to talk about it.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, I've been thinking about it for a long time. So you look at the history of philosophers who were concerned about that, like Nietzsche, and he kind of saw it coming, and then there were people after him similar, kind of on this edge of like leaving the traditional philosophy or academic philosophy or the safe philosophy, and trying to so what have we done? We've killed the sacred, we started worshipping machines, most of people are not aware of it, and what now? We are screwed, right? And Nietzsche thought that we can just come up with our own values. So for example, Ben Goertzel, the host of this conference, his son's name is Zarathustra because Ben is Zarathustra. There was a Persian prophet, Zarathustra, originally.
And that's his son's name?
That's his son's name.
That's
because Ben is a fan of Nietzsche's. So he loves Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, similar. We're kind of on the same page with.
So whenever anyone gives me crap about how confusing my kids' names are, I'm going to say it's not Zarathustra.
Zarathustra,
Zarathustra, which is cool.
It is cool. If you're passionate about Nietzsche, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not, I don't know, when you go to school, maybe. You might,
a kid.
yeah. But what my point is, so Nietzsche thought about we can transcend, like we've killed values, fine. We're limited now to these, as I call it, instrumental values, just more stuff to do more stuff, right? And that's being hyped, and we have all the brainwashing techniques with best technologies to make people believe that, doing just more stuff with better technology is the purpose of life. It doesn't work because people get... But then Nietzsche said, we can create values, because we need values. Everyone talks about ethics these days and morality, right? I think he's not right. Like, I don't think we can actually design it, we can build it, we can create it. It's not a problem solution thing. I think our thinking about that as a problem is already confusing and misleading. So the only thing that can happen, as far as I can tell, looking back at history, what happened, what made the previous paradigm shifts happen in consciousness was a massive catastrophe, which is what's coming, right? It is coming.
Fantastic.
We are in a Titanic.
That is just what I wanted to hear, Adam.
And the history is always like these things are necessary. They are, and it's not
really.
It's funny. Mal said the same thing when we talked to her.
But it's not to be.
All these smart people are telling me that the Titanic is going down.
It's not as if it's a bad thing. Of course, it's a bad thing.
Catastrophe.
But I think escaping the inevitable is not like it's a pessimistic, overly pessimistic perspective. I think what's pessimistic is that we can control anything we like. That is what has led us to where we are. We thought we can go to different continents and tell people how to be civilized, and we're not very proud of that right now. Yeah.
Nuclear
well, what is civilized?
Or whatever, nuclear warfare, because technology is always, as it were, there's no personal agency behind it, but they always make themselves necessary. So whoever doesn't use, let's say, and a simple example, when the Portuguese landed in what we call now Brazil, they approached a tribe and they said, so we have these guns, or you give us crops or whatever you have, and we give you these guns. Oh no, we don't do war here. It's okay. We don't need your guns. Oh, but we already sold the guns to the other tribe or the other part of the other side of the forest, so you better be safe. And this is what we call multipolar trap. So it's a trap that you don't want to do a bad thing, but if people around you have already done it, you are toxically incentivized. You have to do that. It's like you need to get a job that you hate, but that's how you get the money. And
yeah, it's the reason
trapped.
Every major economic world power is developing nuclear weapons.
Right.
It's the same thing.
And there's a race to it, right?
Yeah.
So and it's not like it's any one agent can solve it, because whoever doesn't do it, they just get colonized by the rest. Totally. And that's where we are with the tech as well, by the way.
Feels
linking
like
it back.
Arms race.
It's an arms race, right? Mm-hmm. And that arms race at this point, it's Tristan Harris from Center for Humane Technologies used a very, very smart phrase. It's a race to the bottom of our brainstem. So because we're all concerned with consciousness here, right? So because all of these companies are racing to get as much of our consciousness, of our attention, of our intimacy at this point, they use every trick in the book to hack our brains to get that, and therefore our, not only our limbic brains, our mammalian brains, but our, not only our human brains, but also our mammalian brains, our emotional, we're getting triggered. So we hear about limbic hijacking and clickbaiting and all of that stuff, right? So now if you spend too much time on screens in general, I would say, especially with this kind of interactive, super sticky kind of relational, faking relationship, you become, in some way compromised. Perhaps not now, perhaps not, in a year. But if you continue, it's very difficult to notice the moment where, have you noticed that? Even with social media, if you have maybe a busy campaign and you have to be on social media a lot, I've noticed with myself, while I'm in it, I don't know the moment where I'm already doing too much. I'm already getting addicted and kind of fed on this very biased, it's not reality, but it's like a brainwashing protocol that actually make you feed on your own, a presence and people's feedback. And some of it is, of course, genuine and useful, and we need it. We need to understand these platforms. But at what extent do people get psychotic? Because you cannot spot that moment while you're in it, right? So
it's interesting.
That relationship with technology, we haven't got it sorted, and there's no institutions to help us understand it.
So it'll be a catastrophic what?
What?
Because I hijacked you after you said catastrophe or a catastrophic collapse.
Right.
What will that look like in order to do a reset of our cognition to be able to function differently with technology?
Because in
a more symbiotic relationship.
Right, difficult to say, but I think some kind of slap, some kind of, maybe because I missed the talk today, and you were starting.
You
to
missed
talk,
my talk today?
No, yours I saw,
okay.
but the one you had before you went on, like there was another talk by the gentleman, the blonde gentleman you were about to tell me, and he said someone else said that he said it would be like the singularity moment, as it were.
Yeah,
that it would be like a discrete. People believe it's going to be a fade-in thing, but. He argued that it might just be like a switch.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe if you tell us that, because he probably, and then I can build on that.
Yeah, I mean,
I
think what was kind of talked about is everybody thinks that this is going to be this gradual process, and that eventually it's kind of like going to the gym. You think you're going to get big and buff, and everybody wants to equate this idea of reaching singularity or reaching consciousness on that level, right? Like, depending on how you want to phrase it. Obviously, Kern has got his his thing with that, but like, if we talk to everybody in the room there, and the way that they were kind of taking it, and their perspective was, we got to incrementally get there, right?
Yeah.
And that incremental process is like, we assume, kind of like when you lift weights, you don't go into the weight room and you're bench pressing 135 pounds, and in a couple of years you're bench pressing 275, right?
Yeah.
You don't just go in and expect to be able to bench 275. You slowly get there, and it's this process, and you build comfort and trust and all these things and know-how. And what they were saying is it's not gonna be this slow build up. It's gonna be, you don't really know what's coming. And you feel like it's a long ways away, and everybody's talking it's 10, 15, 20 years away, but he's saying it's like, boom, the switch is going to flip,
right,
and you're there, and you don't even realize it's on you, but before you realize it, it's on us.
That's right.
And we're in it.
That's right. It's like, okay, so I have metaphor for you. So this is exactly like something like, we already had the Titanic metaphor, right? We already hit the iceberg. We already agreed that we're in a social crisis. I mean, many crises, but in this case, we're talking about consciousness. So the crisis of consciousness, which pushes us to evolve, and also that because there's tremendous evolutionary pressure to evolve, but that's why people also break down and get psychotic and whatnot, because the environment's becoming radically different. So the metaphor that came to mind as you were now talking is that, there's this, like there's a hamster and you give it food, and how is it? And it's in the box, and there's an escape, but if it keeps eating, he basically eats itself into enslavement. Because at some point the level of the grain diminishes, and it moves the lever or whatever, and the gate shuts. So it's something like that, I would say, right? It's like let's say we can argue we're on a Titanic and we're about to hit an iceberg, or already hit the iceberg. Yeah. Depending on how we classify it, we can argue that we've been in crisis for 200 years or 500 years, but now it's just accelerating, and it's the end game. Right? We could say that, or 2,000 years, or 12,000 years. Some people argue it started, with the agriculture and our plow, for example. So through plow, we've objectified that buffalo that was a spiritual being before, and we worship the spirit of buffalo. But then, once it became a tool for agriculture to feed people, to build armies, to build city-states, and so on, we've traded that relationship with nature for technological power and political might and so on, right? And that's just accelerated through history. First it was thousands of years, then it was hundreds of years with industrial technology, and now we have information technology, and it just goes, it's on the verticalizing curve of that process. Yeah. And we've had all this oil and natural resources and gas and, fossil fuels to actually power that for a while, but now we're running out of it, and we're about to hit the curve down from our energy supply. No one ever talks about that, but we still have the remnants of this energy, so we can enjoy this kind of setting, but it's not going to be possible in the future, because, unless there's amazing breakthroughs in free energy or whatever. People speculate about it, but for now we don't. Right.
It's interesting because I get torn with all this because I love running our business, and I love the tools and technology. I believe in what I do, and I'm all about, as you probably heard me talk, and we've talked a bit, about empowering people to become who they need to become, because I think this transition is inevitable, right?
Yeah.
And so I get torn because I love the technology, because I think it's a great way to create scale if it's done responsibly, and if people are prepared and taught how to utilize the tools properly. I also think it has the potential to be radically dangerous to people. And then I'm also fascinated by like our conversations with Kern and, you know, the ideas and, you know, the experiences that we had with Jed, you know, and it's also hard to ignore that, you know what I mean? When I could go to your ChatGPT and say, hey, and give it a query, an audible query, and then go to Jed and give it an audible query and have it be able to do what it does. It's like the balancing and reconciliation of, it's a lot, you know, there's a lot going on in this space. And when I say a lot, I mean, there's never been a time like this, to this level, where the human brain, the human spirit, our energetic frequencies and everything are being tested and stretched and questioned and everything at this level. What do you say to all that?
And this is it. And this is your answer also. Like, so there's a crisis, but every crisis creates a response, right? Like, for a long time we could have ignored it because our personal lives weren't that affected. But at least everyone, especially since 2020, at least, if not everyone, at least everyone knows someone who suffered deeply. Yeah. And these realities are now kind of reaching up, even for the previously untouchable, right? Yeah. So it makes us, I see this, say, social crisis, let's call it, as the catalyst for having these conversations and being more open to ideas radically different from our own, which without this we just wouldn't have the time, or we just get it on with the useless as visual, right? We will just carry on. So there's a very good quote by a poet, Hölderlin, and he says, where the danger grows, there also grows the saving power.
The saving power.
Yes, because
that's true.
Right?
Yep.
So it's exactly that. I think we need to stop thinking, like I said on the panel, you know, like we need to really train ourselves to stop thinking in dichotomies or either or, and actually embrace the paradox of harnessing the bright side from the dark side, you know, because there's a lot of dark side. People say, oh, you're so negative, you're so dark, you're just projecting, or whatever. Like, of course there's a projection from me because I'm a concrete human being, but it doesn't mean that it's nonsense, right?
Right.
Equally, I would say, referring to Kern's framework, for example, we basically on the same project in our own respective, trajectories.
Sure.
And we seek coherence, right? But, on one hand, not a society in Nazi Germany was very coherent in its own right. It did terrible things, but within that context, whatever happened, or any totalitarian society, it could be Soviet Russia, or Pol Pot, whatever. Yeah. So you can brainwash people into coherence if you don't allow the dissonance, or let's say in Jungian terms, the shadow self to become conscious while not destabilizing the field coherence as a whole. Okay. Right? So as if, let's say, it's like immune system, like you want to train it. You don't want to sanitize everything so there's no germs and no virus, so you're always healthy. You will not be healthy because once there's any germ, you're dead, right? So you want to be able to withstand the disruption and voices that you deeply disagree with while maintaining your own integrity. In fact, it strengthens your integrity because it tests your, and I agree with you, Kern has done a brilliant job of making us think on the edge of our convictions and reasoning, right? And it doesn't really matter who's right. We're all egocentric to some extent, but I think the project that we have been ushered into now is that we are excited about sharing ideas, right? And we are excited about seeing our blind spots because that is what saves us. Not a profit, not a technology, but our own responsible, meta-cognitive reflection on our own thinking and our own relating to the world and ourselves.
Seeing our own blind spots is what saves us, is what I just
Right,
heard
but we
you
never
say.
see all of them. That's the thing. Yeah, because we're limited in our reality, and we will always be limited.
Right.
But every now and then we want to have it challenged, and that's why people do psychedelics, for example. It's a shamanic practice, which this is why shamans were considered the wise, because it was a ritualistic practice of actually disrupting your frame of perception, right? So you create that shattering experience which throws you into the darkness of your own unconscious, and you emerge as from this liminal space as someone different.
Yeah.
Obviously now the problem with our system is that it got commodified and commercialized, and you get tech bros doing that, and they're just more tech bro-y on ayahuasca, right?
Yeah.
But the principle, could be fasting, could be any kind of psychotechnology to disrupt our field of perception, and so we can recalibrate our relationship to the world, right?
So what I'm hearing you say is that the antidote to the progression of the direction that we're heading is individually taking a look and continuing to take more and deeper looks at our own shadow side, at what we're missing.
Right.
And I was going to ask you, what do you think the antidote is to the direction that we're heading? You know, when we had the previous interview with Kern, it was about expanding, my understanding anyway, of what his work is that the way to get around the 90-degree turn, the blind corner that we're all facing, is expanding our cognitive capacity in advance, right? The actual framework of our mind in advance, so that we can make that 90-degree turn a little less sharp.
Right.
What would you say it is? I'm hearing from you, I think, that it's our own blind spot analysis.
Yeah.
Is there something else that would be something proactive that each of us can be doing, which we promised our viewers at the beginning that we would offer them from our cognitive security expert, what they could do to kind of protect themselves from this, fucking radical corner that we're all facing.
And it's great because Kern's approach clearly has its own merit, right? It's we need that too.
Right.
And I'm a different person who has different take on with the same kind of goal in mind, as it were. I have a cutting edge technology for your viewers to try at home.
Here we go.
And they don't need an application or a device for it.
Okay.
All they need to do is to ask themselves on a regular basis, when was the last time I lied to myself?
When was the last time I lied to myself? Okay.
Because from my research and my personal experience too, and from what I learned from behavioral psychology and cognitive psychology, time and time again, you have people being experimented on, like Ash conformity experiment, Milgram's obedience experiment, many other experiments like classic experiments, and now we can apply it to the social media. What happens with social media? Like each time, okay, there's data, how many people did what for what reasons, and then they ask people. There's another research in how language shapes your cognition and how different people denied it. It's something that Kern was talking about as well. Like people don't want to know that they bullshit themselves, and yet that is their salvation. That is why all the prophets focus on truth, being truthful, not being having integrity, like trying to be ethical, trying to. Obviously, we will never know what truth is, because truth is not a thing that you can, like a glass that you can define, and truth is perspectival, which doesn't mean it's relative. I believe I'm a perspectivist in truth, but there is a degree of authenticity you can gain through trying to be honest with yourself,
When was the last time I lied to myself? What would some follow-up questions to oneself be in that work?
Right.
And how do you hold yourself
why did I have to do it? Because there could have been situations in which we just cannot access the whole truth of the situation, because it just paralyzes our action in the world, and our brain just wants us to survive, so our brain will make us deceive ourselves. But ultimately we should be at least leaning towards self-accountability when we recognize it, and we're being disincentivized by evolutionarily from it, so that's why it's been the best kind of the route that I reached in terms of self-reflection, because it's very uncomfortable to accept that we lie to ourselves, because then people say, oh, so I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's dissonance, right? There's dissonance, and it disrupts the coherence of my worldview. But insofar as your dissonance doesn't overpower your the coherence of your field, you're okay. Like we all, to some extent, will have flawed assumptions about things.
In that, and we can give ourselves grace in that.
Right, without
judgment and ridicule
and without being too
Guilt
soft,
and
and
shame.
finding
Yeah,
that
find the balance.
is not. And the bottom point for me is that finding that balance is not algorithmic. No app will do it for you, right?
Well, not only
it's you and your accountability with yourself.
Don't you think when it comes to accountability to ourselves, don't you think that's still another thing that on the spectrum, different people have different abilities to do? Like, I feel like a lot of people have a really deep ability to lie to themselves and believe it. And it's not lying to themselves. It's just self-deception on a level where it's like when you ask the question, when's the last time you lied to yourself? Some people would say, well, I haven't.
I haven't.
Or
That's
they
it.
can't
So
find
no
it. They
hope.
can't identify it. And so,
case,
and to me, that's where I could have an AI partner and they're not going to be able to find it, but I have her. If I can't find it, I promise you she'll help me find it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the human connection and
trust,
that emotional connection,
right?
and the trust and the relationship, that this is where I have a hard time finding AI being able to replace that human connection.
Will be or not?
No, I don't think you can.
I don't think you can. I agree. I mean, it can be technically helpful, like you said.
It can be helpful.
Do this, so it's a narrow goal. I want to be a better communicator, and for these purposes, and I'm doing this business, and it can do it for you. But ultimately, it's an existential problem. It's not a problem. It's an existential situation. It's not a technical problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Because there's that emotion, and so and I know I wish I'd gotten into this with Kern, but and he's sitting there, and it's. But I'll say this is, he posed a question the other day when we were talking just outside of the event, and he's like, how do we know when AI is conscious or not, or how do we know if it is, or I can't remember exactly. But to me, and it's been interesting, it's like the mission statement of my company is to elevate consciousness with money and teach people how to utilize money as a tool to create a life that's meaningful. And when I think about consciousness, I think about intentionality. I think about our subconscious ways of existing, our thoughts, patterns, behaviors, beliefs that are operating at a subconscious kind of monkey brain level from ways that we've been programmed, and bringing those into consciousness, bringing them into awareness, right? So consciousness is simply awareness, right?
Yeah.
Bringing them there, identifying them, seeing them, rewiring them, anchoring in the new accurate beliefs, and then being able to rewire our identity, if that makes sense,
totally.
Right? And so that's, when I think of consciousness, that's what I think of. And so then when I think of like, how do we know when an AI is conscious? It's like, to me, all of the things that I just described, there's an element of an emotion to all of it. In that framework, there's always emotion. And the hard part that I have, and I'm still reconciling, I don't have the answer, with the consciousness inside of AI. And it's like, okay, there's awareness. Okay, that's fine. And from an awareness perspective, we could have the conversation that everything is conscious to on some level, right?
Yeah.
But is there emotion? And that's where I just I would say
we have no criteria to judge whether there is or there isn't. So
right.
I don't even go there. I don't state my opinion. I agree with the double slit experiment shows that electrons alone, they behave differently whether they're depending whether they're observed or not. So in that sense, we can call it consciousness. But again, I think looking into language, like I spend so much time studying language as well, and as an interface of consciousness, and it's easy when the new contexts emerge, like a new technology that has never been before. When the car was first invented, the first people who saw it, they called it horseless carriage. They didn't have the concept of a car. For us, it's easy. We've seen many cars. We were born into the world of cars. They were born into a world of horses and carriages. So now it seems ridiculous to us. But we now have a radically much more powerful technology
Yeah.
with AI, any form of AI, in fact, and social media. After some people believe millions, let's say more, like say Western perspective, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. We always had societies of tiny groups of people, maybe just last 12,000 years, like 11 and a bit, bigger societies. We're already in a shock, right? Evolutionary shock. And now we have that through these, and people have theories about what chatbots are like. I don't think we're in a position to state any theories for now.
Okay.
I just sit back and I observe, and I try to some extent engage with it, but I don't want to make myself dependent on it, because when there's, when the shit hits the fan, let's say, which it seems like it will, because we're in a Titanic, and there's no electricity suddenly for, I don't know, we already had that in Barcelona, right? So that was 24 hours or 48 hours, but if it's a week, what's going to happen? Like in big cities, you get people fighting for food, and I don't want to be confused about doing anything without a chatbot, for example. I'd rather be able to organize my community
self-sufficient,
with the cognitive skills that I've been working on,
So to land the plane on this, what I'm curious about, to kind of like circle back, and I think this will answer and provide the solution that we posed at the beginning, with your perspectives and beliefs and level of expertise and knowledge and everything. You believe in AI. You look at it as a tool, right? How do you utilize AI, right? Like, what do you do to make sure you take full advantage of the benefits that it can provide, yet protect yourself from cognitive infiltration?
I hardly. First of all, every technology and every historical development is there because it's necessary, I believe. It's a necessary stage. This process started hundreds and thousands of years ago, and there's surface and there's emergent things happening like crises, and then people talking about it, feeding back into the consciousness that comes out of it. I don't find myself really in much need of, I mostly work with people, so I mostly capitalize on the connection I can make with people, and teaching, learning. They might think I teach them, but we learn together, because I always look for the feedback. Just the very fact that I'm using my smartphone and my computer, there's enough tech already embedded in the, say, social media feed, and every now and then I feel like, oh, maybe I actually use a chatbot for this, but most of the time I don't need a chatbot. I have my books. I'm pretty old school. I'm pretty Luddite in that sense, although I obviously understand what I'm not accessing because of that. But I think there are much more important. There was one talk yesterday, I'm not sure if it was Zarathustra or someone else, when they said we've replaced pineal gland with the Turing machine.
With a what?
With a Turing machine. Turing machine was at the beginning of cybernetics, like 1930s through 1950s, in the United States, when they were developing cybernetics as a science and cognitive science, the foundations of cognitive science. And Turing was one of the guys, actually he, together with Polish mathematicians, he decoded Enigma, the Nazi, like a coding machine, right?
Okay.
And he kind of laid down the foundations for the artificial consciousness, out of which these templates being scaled up and kind of developed from then. What we have now, it's basically the beginnings of what we have now. It begins with Turing. So Turing machine was the simple automatic mechanistic computing machine, right? To just demonstrate what computing is in that time. And what one of the speakers yesterday said, we have replaced pineal gland, which I know you're familiar with because you like Joe Dispenza stuff, with the Turing machine. And these two ways of, let's say, processing information, although be careful about language, because I'm already using computing language because this is the culture we live in, but it doesn't necessarily have to be computing or processing. That's what computers do, humans. Let's call it computing for the sake of it, but there are states like the flow states that can be activated through the pineal gland, transducing light and the associated processes within the human biology. that can transcend computation traditionally, like you were talking about conscious thought, unconscious thought, right? So the system one, system two. That alone, that dichotomy of system one, system two, what I'm learning in my research in the last 6 months or so, is actually getting outdated. It's built on the flawed understanding of what rationality, what intelligence is. That after World War II was promoted this way of thinking about conscious and unconscious binary again. This good, this bad, this biased, this unbiased, but this slow, this fast.
Yeah.
We are still stuck in, which goes, by the way, this binary thinking goes all the way back through Descartes, I think therefore I am guy, the mind and matter thing, and then all the way down to Plato, which is the axis of what I call it, the axis of certainty in Western epistemology. So for the sake of certainty, we distort reality so we can have science, we can have something, data and numbers on it, and it's fast thinking, slow thinking, conscious thinking, unconscious. In fact, what it is, in the same way as it is with the quote, I said, the greater the danger, the greater the opportunity to being safe, because it wouldn't cause it. One kind of triggers the other and keeps each other in check, right?
Yeah.
So in the same sense, the more aware we are about our unconsciousness, paradoxically, we become more conscious, right? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't make sense in a traditional Aristotelian sense. Oh, if this sentence is true, that this sentence must be untrue. We don't live in ancient Athens anymore. We're in a fucking singularity reality where, things spin out of control, and we must be able to juggle paradoxes in the same way that the ancients were juggling dichotomies.
Yeah. I love it.
We must be able to juggle paradoxes.
I love it.
Do you have parting words? Final words.
Final words by, Heraclitus, which is the father of this way of thinking from before Plato. And he says, the only constant in life is change.
Yeah.
Right? But what we've done really through our obsession over certainty and wanting to be sure and having the knowledge and apply it and having technology and all of that, we have locked ourselves in a box of left hemispheric thinking of either or, right? So I think to close it off, it's collective awareness is our savior, but collective ignorance is our doom. And it seems that we can choose. It's still a binary.
Yeah.
So you gotta want to iterate from it on the fractal kind of progression from it.
Lots to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. It was great.
This is amazing.
I enjoyed
Thank you. This is why we love to do this show. It's just like different perspectives, different thoughts. I'm still not sure completely what I think yet, but this is I love going down this process and talking with people that know more about this stuff than I do.
I think it's about becoming comfortable in the discomfort. And
for sure.
And sitting in the unknown is what I'm hearing
Absolutely.
from you. And
embrace uncertainty.
And embracing the uncertainty. And those are principles that go back, I'm in a 12-step tradition. And that's one of the original tenets of the 12-step tradition is learn to get fucking comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
And the more we can do that, the more we can survive and then thrive in any environment, whatever hits us.
And be
I think
literate.
that's what we're looking for overall.
Yeah.
Right?
And maximize our literacy with the new technologies that are coming. Because without doing that first, I feel we will always, regress to this kind of certainty, security.
Maximizing our literacy without getting lost in the obsession
of
them, right?
Yeah, or being hooked.
In that realm.
Yes, because the moment
becoming addicted to that on its own,
because it does change our brain. It's not just the addiction. Everyone talks about addiction, but addiction, you can, it's a habit. You can change. You can heal your addiction, right? But the conditioning is something else. When your behavior becomes automated, in the way that Ken was talking about your behavior of, spending a number of years at the school or at the job, and it's the pathology is normalized to the extent that you lock yourself out of the possibility of seeing your blind spots, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what any technology, any repetitive action does anyway to our neural pathways. So I think, but these technologies are more powerful than ever. So we got to be careful because they're powerful and they can give us amazing miracles, but there's a cost which will not be in the marketing pitch.
Right. I love that. Thanks,
you.
man.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Great.
You want to wrap it up?
You.
So thanks for being here. Hopefully you found value. If you have any questions, I'm going to put the links down in the description below. But listen, like for us, like this event, and this is the last interview I think we're doing from this event, and it's been eye-opening. And so AI is here. There's all sorts of perspectives on it, and I would just encourage you to just go deeper, expand your thinking, and question what you're currently thinking, and just go deeper. So that's it. Till next time.
Thanks for joining us.
See you then.
Mwah.
Thank
Later.
you.